to this special post-Illinois primary edition of At the Table. Joining me now is 1st District congressional candidate Jonathan Jackson, who won his big 17-way primary on Tuesday night. So, Jonathan Jackson, it does seem highly likely that you will clinch the November election since the 1st congressional district is so Democratic. Let me just recap for our viewers here how the race went. You won with 28.2% of the race. That's 19,000 votes. Alderman Pat Dowell, who came in second, was 19.3%. Karen Norrington Reeves, who had Congressman Bobby Rush's endorsement, 13.9%. And then Senator Jacqueline Collins finishes leading the field with 12.1% or 8,258 votes. So let me ask a question about the real world. Congratulations on your win.
Thank you.
But do you think you could have done it if you were not the son of the Reverend Jesse Jackson?
We'll never know. I am proud of my father, proud of the name Jackson, proud of the name becoming synonymous with service. It's not a dynasty, it's a legacy of service. We have served the neighborhood for many years. I'm very proud of that. Having gone to high school here and Northwestern for business school, taught at Kennedy King Community College, having been on the Illinois Community College Board, having been a professor at Chicago State University, having been on WVON as a commentator for many years, teaching about economics in the afternoon drive time, as well as being on Rainbow Push. So I would say no one has outserved the persons in the 1st congressional district, and I would challenge you to find someone that's done more for more people in the district.
Well, I'm not, in a sense, so that's not the point, because I know the power of the name and of the Reverend Jesse Jackson. But let me put it this way. What did your father say to you when he realized you were about to win, or when you clinched on Tuesday night?
I'm so proud of you. He says you're deserving, you've worked hard, and I'm glad you took a chance.
So one of the things that happened Tuesday night is that, and I'm kind of pivoting here, is that we found out that in Illinois, the Trump Republican movement is strong and probably getting stronger. We saw Darren Bailey win the Republican nomination. We saw Mary Miller, the freshman congressman, beat Rodney Davis. You will probably be meeting and serving with her in the delegation soon. And we saw that in the Republican Senate primary, of all things, Kathy Selvey won, who's the Lake County attorney, but Peggy Hubbard came in a strong second, who is part of the MAGA Republican movement. So let me try this one out on you. Darren Bailey is calling Chicago a hellhole. Jonathan Jackson says to that, what?
That's unfortunate. It's not true. I'd like to think that Chicago is the place that was meant to be, where the lake and the prairies meet. That seems very callous and insensitive to say that about the city. I would encourage him to understand the complexities of the city and be more creative and forward thinking to offer solutions, not to just write off the largest metropolitan area in the state, the part of the state that generates the most revenue, that if he's going to govern, he has to govern the entire state.
So how do you think you could get a message like that to him?
I think the voters will give it to him. So I look forward to the debates between he and Governor Pritzker, and I think when his views become more widely known, people will have their own reaction.
So in your analysis, because you've been in politics forever, I mean, I have covered, just so everyone knows, I've been covering, actually I've covered Reverend Jackson, I've covered your brother,
yes.
And we have to bring this up. As our viewers know, your brother, the former Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., did represent the 2nd District. And let me just get to this right now for a moment. He quit Congress under a cloud. He did go to prison for looting his campaign fund. Do you feel, as you are in position now to be going to Congress, presuming you win in November, which seems likely, how do you reflect on that, and how does that inform you as you chart your course?
I'm running for the 1st congressional district. I've got a platform that's focused on bringing jobs and economic opportunity. We have to attack gun violence that is plaguing the city. It is a epidemic. I am focused on the 1st Congressional District.
Okay, so this counts in political thing. You kind of slid away from my point. I did want to know if you had a reflection, though, on, your father years ago was very proud, too, when Jesse Jr. Ran and won, and I covered him for many years. So do you have, you were reticent in the campaign. I talked to Jonathan when he was in Washington, and I understand you didn't want to get into it, but now that you're nominated, is there something that informs you as you may likely be starting your congressional career on what happened to your brother?
No.
Okay. Now, one of the other points I was making when I talked about how there's the rise of the Trump Republican, I want to go back to where we were. We also saw in this election the other side getting a little more powerful, and that is the progressive movement. So we have in Illinois, we're getting both sides getting stronger. I first saw this when Bernie Sanders beat Hillary Clinton in a primary in 2016, and Trump beat some of the other Republicans in the same counties. It was kind of like very red, very blue. So in your analysis of some of the races where there is really this clearer cut, in a sense, struggle for the future of the Democratic Party, the victory of Delia Ramirez, Kenya Collins came close. What do you make of this as where the Democratic Party is flowing right now and where you may be?
Well, I think Illinois is a reflection of what the national numbers are. Look at what happened in Georgia. There was just, after the runoff and Ossoff and Warnock and 4 million votes cast, it came back to 1%. If you look at the states that Biden won versus Trump, take out maybe Michigan and a few others, after 155 million votes were cast nationwide. And of course, Biden won by 7 million. But as far as the electoral college and the votes, in those 3 states, had Trump won 1 or 2 of those states, it would have been a different outcome. So we are reflecting, mirroring what's happening across the entire country. That was razor thin. There were 155 million votes cast in 2020, and it was only 400,000 votes within 6 states that made the difference.
I want to kind of get back to where it may be. See, it was harder to gauge in your primary because I didn't see this as it was in Illinois 3 between Delia Ramirez and Alderman, the state representative who won, and Alderman Gil Villegas, where it was clear that there is, he was here on the progressive spectrum and she was there. And there was outside money that played to that too. In your race, because there were so many people who were all seemingly to the left, where do you put yourself? Who would you be allied with when you get to Washington, presuming you do? Are you working family party guy? Are you Justice Democrats? Are you the New Democratic Coalition? And these are all, when I'm saying that, are the kind of groups or organizations that members of Congress who want to ally themselves on the spectrum belong to. Where would you put yourself?
I really couldn't at this time. I have great friends in the Congressional Progressive Caucus. They've endorsed me. I've got a long history of friends in the Congressional Black Caucus. They've been very supportive. I don't know enough about the groups within the party, in all fairness, that when I do, I think that'll speak for itself. And the stances that I would take on different issues, there will be a case by case. So I don't cast my vote into a bucket and say, these are the people I'm voting with on all these issues. I'm not a lawyer. I've not served in political office before. I'll look at this. Some things on the social justice side, it's good for that's good for the families. Other things I look at on the business sides and figure out what is a synthesis that works for both of them.
So, by the way, did you get any calls of congratulations from anyone, locally, nationally?
Oh, yes.
Tell me who.
Congresswoman Maxine Waters, I appreciate her call. Congressman Benny Thompson, Congressman Ro Khanna, Congressman Raja, Chris Murthy, Congressman Chuy Garcia, Nancy Pelosi's office. So there were so many calls to come in.
Her office, not the speaker herself?
Correct.
Is that because you couldn't connect, or she... What about Hakeem Jeffries? No?
in all fairness, like I've received hundreds of texts,
Uh-huh.
and so I haven't even seen them all, Lynn. I first started thanking people and volunteers, and I've been doing this for the last almost 18 hours.
Anyone from the White House
Not yet, no.
on that? So,
Or shall I say, not to my knowledge. Like,
so presuming again, the high probability that you will be reelected given the overwhelming Democratic nature of your district, I think it's plus 42 Democratic as it's rated. What committees would you like to get on? And just so, again, our listeners know, freshmen aspire to get on committees. They don't always make it because there's a lot of competition for the best ones. But what are you going to give a shot for?
Of course, Ways and Means seems wonderful. Why not?
And here's another reason why you wouldn't get it. Because I think the Chicago slots are taken up because Congressman Danny Davis is on it, and I think Brad Schneider. But anyway, that's one. What else? I'm asking the aspirations. What else?
Financial services always of an interest to me because in rebuilding our communities, you have to have depository institutions. We have got to make sure that capital is not being asphyxiated. Right now, it's cut off in the neighborhood. So we'll have to have a revitalization of certain programs, such as the SBIC, the MESBIC. How do we get capital into entrepreneurs' hands into these neighborhoods is still a challenge.
Any other committees?
Foreign affairs, I think, I just started thinking about it. It's very interesting.
Why would you want to go on foreign affairs?
You know, the world is so interdependent right now. I can definitely see where there's going to be an increase. What's happening in the Ukraine is affecting us in the United States. What's happening in Afghanistan affects us. And the world is looking at the United States for leadership. So we do have a role. What's happened in Haiti, what's happening in the United States affects what's going on in Haitian policy. So foreign affairs, I believe, there's so many immigrants here.
Those are all A committees that you got into. So Maxine Waters.
Give me a choice. I want the A's.
Yeah. So
you're like asking a student, you want an A or a B? Give me an A.
Right. So I believe Maxine Waters has known you and your family since you've been a baby. And Maxine Waters is the chairwoman of the committee. Now, if the Democrats lose control of the House, then she'd be the ranking member, but still would have a say in who gets on the committee. Have you talked to her already about being on this? No. So, but this does bring me a wonderful transition to the issue of cryptocurrency industry backing your election. And you did have a detailed cryptocurrency policy plan on your website. I wrote about it multiple times. By the end of the campaign, 3 outside expenditures that the potential congressman had no control over, did throw in about $1 million to support Jonathan Jackson's candidacy. Where did you come up with all this detailed cryptocurrency policy stuff that I read on your website?
Are you going to talk about any other independent expenditures in the?
In your case, that was the biggest
I'm
one.
talking about amongst all the candidates.
There was one other candidate who had $800,000. Yes, Corrine Norrington Reeves, but she came in 3rd place. And let me just do that off the top. So out of her expenditures, some of them came from groups that we don't know who they are, who organized it, or who the donors were. With the people in the crypto industry, 2 out of the 3, we have a good handle of who they are. So have I, to your satisfaction, brought out that other outside expenditures were at work?
For your journalistic integrity, do you think you brought out what, so it was $1 million spent on more than one person in the race?
No, 800,000.
825,000.
Yes.
Plus, and so I don't know who these people are.
I know that. I'm not saying that.
And so more specifically, I have talked about, I've had positions on cigarettes. I've had positions on pandemic preparedness, because that's a major issue.
So I sometimes deal, and you'll know this, if we both are in Washington, and maybe I'll be driving you crazy for the next 100 years too. But here's what's good. I could tell already, he understands I've got a job to do, right? So bear with me. I asked a narrow, very specific question. How did you come up with that very specific crypto policy stuff you had on your website?
One of the persons that has endorsed me is Congressman Ro Khanna from Silicon Valley. And I know that this is an emerging industry. I do care about fintech. I went to Northwestern's school for business at Kellogg. I was a runner on the New York Stock Exchange. I worked at 99 Wall Street. I worked at Drexel Burnham Lambert in Beverly Hills. I've worked in high yield, distressed debt. I've worked at the Chicago Board of Trade. So I'm very familiar with financial institutions. I was working at Independence Bank here in Chicago. So this mirrors my background on understanding financial institutions. This is an emerging industry. And so that's why I decided to write a policy paper on it, because it's what's hot and what's new. And it's going through its challenges in its infancy. And so, like, how will this industry be shaped for the future? That's just one. The same thing, the rules have to be made for 5G and its technology and deployment. We saw where that got pulled back because of the logistical equipment. The rules also are going to have to be made for social media. So there's a lot of rules that are but I want to make sure the South Side is a part of the new industry and the new technology. We cannot focus on buggies and whips on the South Side. So I have been a proponent in my discussions and in my campaign on how do we bring new industries to the South Side.
And let me just bring this up, with all your financial savvy and experience, why did it take you so long to file your personal finance disclosure? I
made a mistake. I accept that responsibility. Apparently, once you become a candidate and you fill the ballot, a mailer is sent out to your office that tells you what the requirements are. I've never seen the mailer. Okay. I've had 3 offices in 2 months. We started in the campaign. It's been a 5-month campaign. And so I didn't know if the mail didn't catch up, if it got caught in junk mail. And there was nothing to say, you should be anticipating this document. So I assume full responsibility. I should have known. And it's a $200 fine, which is very much like a parking ticket going through a red light in the city of Chicago.
I think it's a little more. But here's the thing.
No, it's a $200 fine. It's not more than that.
For every 200 days. I think it'll be more than that, because I think it's 200 every whatever period. But it's not. I see your point is
it's a $200 fine. And so
okay, I think it's a little more than that, but it's still a nominal thing. The biggest infrastructure project that you want to make sure happens in the 1st Congressional District, if you're elected, is?
The mass transit grid. The mass transit as far as road and rail.
Is there one project that you especially want to say, I'm going to make sure this happens, or is in the works right now, and you want to say, this is going to be the thing I keep watch on?
No, I can't say that right now.
Okay.
I imagine as I get closer to it and I find out more things, I don't know if there's an issue with quality of water. As I go into the very far south end of the district, I understand there's some flooding issues that are regarding infrastructure and water.
Because you do have some lake fund too.
Right, and also understand that there is some environmental concerns that are on the south end around the Dalton. So once you're in leadership in the Congress, you see what all the pressing needs are. So speaking from the outside of the district, from outside of government, I don't know the latest EPA reports. I'd like to talk with the people at the Department of Transportation, what they're saying are the most critical needs. So you've got to collaborate, not come in there with an idea, and it's not what the professionals that are working in government says is most needed.
You have operated in local politics, state, national. One of the things that's coming up is the Chicago mayoral race, which is already kind of in full bloom, with Mayor Lightfoot running for re-election. Are you going to back someone in the Chicago mayoral race?
I am focused on the 1st district. This race was the primary. I've got to get through the general, so I've not paid attention. I've not endorsed anybody. In the local races, I've stayed extremely focused just on the 1st district in those races.
There's another election coming up this summer, and that is the re-election bid of Congresswoman Robin Kelly to be the Democratic Party of Illinois chair. There might be some politics surrounding it, other rivalries. Do you think you will take a look at that and possibly back someone? You're not a voting member of the State Central Committee, but since she will be a member of the delegation that you probably soon will be a member of, do you think you'll say something about that race?
Probably not, but I would keep it open. I don't know enough about it.
Okay. So as my last question, as you think about what you want to do in Congress, We talked about the committees, the groups you might be allied with on there. Is there something that you already have in mind that if you're there, you think might be your first piece of legislation that you might want to work on?
I would really like to think about the Citizens Restoration Act. Is an idea that I've had that persons that have served time, American citizens, should have their rights fully restored after you have paid whatever penalty to society, whatever debt that you owe to society. There are 5.2 million Americans that have served time that have felonies. I would like to see them fully enfranchised. You should have your right. That should be the most sacred right that we have. When I hear about children that have criminal records and they've copped a plea for a felony and now they are permanently disenfranchised because they've had a felony as a young adult, as a teen, and they copped a plea. They did not realize they had given up their right to vote for the rest of their life.
So your legislation would figure out a way to restore voting rights to people that
I
have
think
served
that
their
is
time.
I think that is very key. If I had a big wish,
Yeah.
a dream, whatever we can do to make sure every vote counts. There's records amount of money now that are going into Secretary of State's races and into Attorney General races. We've gone from the right to vote to now who counts the vote. We have to make sure that we are managing the software of our democracy.
Right. So I just do want to point out that it would then include your brother, the former Congressman Jesse Jackson. But we're moving on. Hopefully this is the beginning of many conversations we'll have during the campaign, which I think in this Democratic district is going to go your way. And as we move forward, whether I talk to you in Chicago or in Washington, thank you, Jonathan Jackson, for joining us on this special edition, this special post-Illinois primary edition of At the Table.